I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post something like this, but here I am, writing my heart out to strangers on the internet because my own family has completely destroyed my trust. It all started after my dad passed away last year. It was sudden, a heart attack. One day he was fine, joking at the dinner table, and the next morning he was just gone. My world fell apart. Dad and I were close. He was the one who always told me he was proud of me, the one who came to my school plays, the one who stayed up late to help me with my essays. Mom and I? Well, we never had the same connection. She's a strict, her way or the highway kind of person. We didn't fight much, but we weren't warm either. My older brother, Jake, though, he was the golden child. No matter what Jake did, Mom would defend him. Failed a class. The teacher's fault. Got a speeding ticket. The police were targeting him. Jake could do no wrong. After Dad's funeral, we had to deal with his estate. It wasn't huge. Dad was a teacher, not a millionaire, but he was smart with money. Over the years, he saved about $200,000, plus the house that he and Mom lived in. One evening, Mom invited Jake and me over to discuss the will. I thought it would be straightforward. Dad had always been fair. I expected him to split everything equally between Jake and me. But when we sat down, Mom said something that made my stomach drop. I've already handled everything with the lawyer. The money is going to Jake. I froze. What about me? I asked. She looked at me, completely calm. You're doing fine on your own, she said. Jake's had a harder time, and he needs the support. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Jake is a 32-year-old man who still lives with Mom, works part-time by choice, and spends his free time playing video games. I'm 28, I have my own apartment, a decent job, but I also have student loans and bills. I'm not rolling in cash. I tried to keep my voice steady. Dad wouldn't have wanted this, I said. Mom's eyes narrowed. Your father trusted me to make the right decisions, and I am. I asked to see the will. She said it wasn't my business anymore. I left that night shaking with anger and betrayal. Over the next few weeks, I tried to get answers. I called the lawyer's office, but they wouldn't tell me anything without Mom's consent. I reached out to extended family, but most of them didn't want to get involved. It's a family matter, they said. Jake had the nerve to call me and say, You're being selfish. I need the money more than you. Selfish? I was furious. This wasn't some gift. This was supposed to be my inheritance, too. My dad's legacy. I started digging into how inheritance laws work in our state. That's when I realized something. If Dad had a legal will splitting the estate, Mom wouldn't be able to just change it after his death, which meant maybe she never gave the lawyer the real will. That thought made me sick. I remember Dad once telling me, if anything happens to me, check my desk drawer. At the time, I thought he meant bills or insurance info. But what if... So one Saturday morning, when I knew Mom would be at her church group, I drove to her house. The place felt different without Dad's laughter in it. I went straight to his desk in the study. I opened the top drawer, just old pens and sticky notes. The second drawer had some bank statements. Then, in the bottom drawer, under a stack of old photo albums, I found a large envelope marked Will James Parker. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a will dated 2 years ago, signed by Dad and witnessed by 2 neighbors. It said in plain black ink, all assets to be divided equally between my 2 children, me and Jake Parker. I knew it. My heart was pounding. Mom had lied. She had gone behind my back, ignored Dad's wishes, and given everything to Jake. I took pictures of the will with my phone, then carefully put it back. I didn't want her to know I'd been there, not yet. That night I couldn't sleep. My brain kept bouncing between rage and heartbreak. This wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about Dad's memory. I decided to confront her again, but this time I'd be ready. The next day I went to her house. Jake was there too, lounging on the couch, eating chips like he owned the place. I sat down across from them and said, "I found Dad's will." The room went silent. Mom's face froze for half a second before she composed herself. "You had no right to go through his things," she said coldly. "You had no right to ignore his wishes," I shot back. "The will says the estate should be split evenly." "You lied to me, Mom." Jake jumped in. "Oh, come on, you don't need the money. You got a good job. I'm the one who's struggling." I glared at him. "You're struggling because you don't try. Dad didn't work for 40 years, so you could sit on your ass and live off his savings." Mom stood up, her voice sharp. "I made the decision. This discussion is over." But it wasn't over for me. Not even close. I called a different lawyer, one who didn't know my mom. I explained the situation and sent him the photos of the will. He told me I had a strong case to contest the inheritance in court. The idea of suing my own mother made me feel sick. But what choice did I have? She wasn't going to do the right thing on her own. When I told her I had spoken to a lawyer, she exploded. She said I was tearing the family apart, that Dad would be ashamed of me. But deep down, I knew Dad would be ashamed of her. That night, I filed the paperwork to start the legal process. And that's where I'm at now, stuck in this awful limbo, waiting for the court date, knowing that when this is over, my relationship with my mom and brother will never be the same. But honestly, I think it's already gone. The weeks after filing the paperwork felt like walking through the quicksand. Every day I'd wake up with my chest tight, my thoughts spinning with what-ifs. What if the judge sided with Mom? What if Jake somehow convinced them I didn't deserve the money? What if they found some legal loophole to erase Dad's will completely? I didn't want this fight, but I wasn't going to walk away from it either. It didn't take long for Mom to start her own campaign against me. Aunt Karen called one evening, her voice cold. "Your mother says you're suing her over misunderstanding. Is that true?" A misunderstanding? No. A deliberate betrayal. I told her the truth, word for word, even sent her a photo of the will. She went quiet for a long moment before saying, "This is ugly. I don't want to be in the middle of it." And just like that click, another door closed. Within a week, I noticed I was being unfollowed by cousins on Facebook. Old family friends stopped replying to my messages. Jake was clearly running his mouth too because a former mutual friend texted me. "Man, Jake says you're trying to bankrupt your own mom. What's wrong with you?" It was infuriating. They were painting me as the villain, while they were the ones rewriting Dad's final wishes. My lawyer, Mr. Daniels, was calm and methodical. He explained everything. We'd submit the will, the witness statements from Dad's neighbors, and evidence of the estate's value. The biggest challenge? Proving Mom intentionally ignored the will and acted in bad faith. I brought up the fact that she'd never even shown me the will, claiming it wasn't my business anymore. Mr. Daniels nodded and said that could be key. It showed she was actively trying to hide information from me. But here's the thing, court isn't quick. Our date was set for almost 4 months out. 4 months. 4 months of awkward family run-ins at the grocery store, a mom pretending I didn't exist when we crossed paths, of Jake smirking at me like he'd already won. One rainy Thursday, I heard a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, Jake was standing there. He looked off. His hair was messy, and for once he wasn't wearing that smug grin. "Can I come in?" he asked. Every instinct screamed no, but curiosity won. He sat down on my couch and stared at the floor for a long moment before blurting out, "I think Mom's in trouble." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She already spent a big chunk of the money." My stomach sank. "How much?" He hesitated. "Over $80,000. I couldn't breathe for a second. 80,000, that wasn't a little overspending. That was life-changing money gone. Jake explained she'd paid off some of his debts, remodeled the kitchen, and loaned a friend from church $25,000. No contract, no paperwork. I was stunned. Not only had she stolen from me, she was burning through it like it was nothing. Things get messier. The next day I told Mr. Daniels. He immediately adjusted our strategy. "This isn't just a will dispute now. This is potential financial misconduct. The court won't like that." We added a request for a full accounting of the estate's transactions since Dad's death. Mom's lawyer tried to fight it, but the judge approved. She'd have to hand over every receipt, transfer, and withdrawal. That's when I started to realize this wasn't just about being fair. It was about holding her accountable before she wasted everything. When Mom got the court order, she called me. I almost didn't pick up. Her voice was ice. "How dare you humiliate me like this? Do you want me to go to jail?" I stayed calm. "I want you to follow Dad's wishes. That's all I ever wanted." She started crying. Real tears. And for a split second, my resolve wavered. This was my mom. The woman who'd bandaged my knees when I was 5. Who'd made me soup when I was sick. But then I remembered she'd looked me in the eye and lied. She'd chosen Jake over me, not because he deserved it, but because she could. So I said the hardest words I've ever said. "If that's what it takes for justice, then yes, even if you go to jail." She hung up. The morning of the hearing, I sat outside the courthouse, my hands shaking around a cup of coffee I couldn't bring myself to drink. Jake and Mom arrived together, both in dark clothes, looking like they were going to a funeral. Inside, it was a blur of legal language, exhibits, and witness testimony. The 2 neighbors who'd signed Dad's will testified that he'd been very clear he wanted things split equally. Mom's lawyer tried to argue that Dad had verbally told her to give Jake more, but there was no evidence of that. And when the judge asked about the $80,000, Mom's answers were vague at best. By the time closing statements ended, I could feel the shift in the room. Even Jake looked nervous. The judge ruled in my favor. Half of the remaining estate, plus half the value of the house, was mine. And because Mom had spent part of it, she was ordered to reimburse me from her own funds over the next 2 years. She didn't look at me once as the judge spoke. Jake muttered something under his breath as they walked out, but I didn't care. I'd won. Not out of greed, but because it was the right thing. Winning didn't feel as good as I thought it would. Sure, I'd get my share of Dad's money, but I'd also lost my family into the process. Mom hasn't spoken to me since. Jake sent one text that just said, "Hope you're happy." Am I? Not really. But I'm at peace knowing Dad's wishes were honored. I put my share into a savings account I named Dad's Legacy. Every time I look at that balance, I remember him, the man who worked hard, loved us both, and believed in fairness. And while I wish things had ended differently, I know I did the only thing I could.